So let me tell you a story. It's the assessment centre of one of the biggest aerospace companies in the UK. And I'm sitting in the interview and they ask me the question, why do you want this degree apprenticeship? And this is a question that usually it's one of the first ones you should be preparing that you have an answer for straight away. But as I'm sitting in this interview and I give myself a couple of seconds to answer, I genuinely don't know. And the reason for this is because I've applied for electrical and electronic engineering degree apprenticeship at one of the biggest aerospace companies in the UK. And the only problem is, I don't actually know what electrical engineering is. I was in this interview, in this assessment centre, and I didn't even know what the apprenticeship I was applying to was. If you ask me what electrical engineering is now, I still don't know. I would guess it's something to do with batteries and wires and electricity maybe, but I don't actually know what electrical engineering is. Yet somehow the next day after this assessment centre, this company phoned me up and said they'd given me an offer and they were giving me the job. So how had I got this apprenticeship without even knowing what the apprenticeship is, which is literally the fundamental part of applying for an apprenticeship, is knowing what you're applying for and what the roles are you're going to do. Because there would have been other people in that assessment centre who their passion was electrical engineering. They had genuinely spent 2 years, like in evenings, like researching about electrical engineering and finding out more about it. They probably had work experience, like they know everything about electrical engineering. I didn't know a single thing about it, yet I had somehow got the job over them. And the reason I'd got the job over them was because of a simple strategy, which I'm going to explain to you in this video. Welcome to the full guide on getting an apprenticeship at an aerospace company. So first of all, I just want to clarify who this video is for, because in that story at the start I mentioned that I was applying for an electrical engineering apprenticeship. But this video is for anyone applying for any role at an aerospace company. So this could be anything from engineering, as I say, could be aerospace engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, or it could be completely unrelated roles, so a HR role or a finance role, project manager role, DTS role, absolutely anything. This video is for you and it will give you the strategy to get your apprenticeship at the aerospace or aeronautical or aviation company, whatever it may be. So first of all, I want to go through some of the main companies in the UK that offer degree apprenticeships. Now this isn't an exhaustive list, though I'm sure there's more, but this is just a list for you to start off, and you can start giving these a Google to find out what's going on with these and see if there's an apprenticeship for you. So we have Airbus, Defence Equipment and Support, GE Aerospace, Lockheed Martin, MBDA and Rolls-Royce. That's just a list of some of the companies that do degree apprenticeships in the UK. And on top of that you have Boeing, I believe. They do apprenticeships but not degree apprenticeships. So that's just something to bear in mind. Make sure you're looking for level 6, because that's what the degree apprenticeship is. Now in terms of locations, there are quite a few around the country, but the biggest place is in the southwest. That's the biggest place really for aerospace. So places like Bristol, Cheltenham and Gloucester, that's where you got companies DES, GE Aerospace, MBDA and Airbus. They're all based down there. But you do have some other locations around the UK. Let me give you some examples. So in the Midlands you have Rolls-Royce at Birmingham and Derby. In the northwest you have MBDA at Bolton. And then finally in the south, there's quite a bit in Bedfordshire where you have Lockheed Martin and MBDA. So that's something just to bear in mind. Those are the main locations for these aerospace companies. So now that you know what companies and what locations you can apply to get a degree apprenticeship in the aerospace industry, let me give you the steps and strategy that I use to get my degree apprenticeship offer from the aerospace company. Step 1A. Research. Now this gets thrown around quite a lot. Research for apprenticeships, research your company, research your industry, but I don't think anyone really knows what that means. Like, what does it mean when people say you have to research the company? It's quite a difficult and challenging thing to do, and because you don't really know what it actually is involved in, and it's also quite tedious, because what do you even do? Do you just go on the websites and just scroll through random pages until you find something useful? So first of all, I'm just going to clarify what research is and what good research constitutes for these apprenticeships. So basically you can boil it down to 3 things that you need in research: trends, goals and innovations. So what do I mean by that? So first of all, you need to find out what the trends are, and this research you need to do for both the company itself and the wider industry. So you need to find out the trends of the company and the industry, which basically means where is it headed? Where is the industry headed? What direction is it headed in? Number 2 it is the goals. Okay, so what are the goals of the industry or the company? Or in other words, why is it headed in the direction it's headed in that we just found out in the previous step from trends? Okay, and then finally it's innovation. So what are the recent innovations? In other words, how is the industry or company going about getting to these goals, right? So those are the three things you need to think about. Trends, where is it headed? Goals, why is it headed there? And innovations, how will we get there? So those are the three things that you need to find out during your research. And I'm actually going to give you a head start in this video right now with some research. So in year 12, I did Lambda Public Speaking Award, and you had to make 2 presentations for each exam. And one of the presentations I made was on the future of aviation. So I talked all about these trends, goals, and innovations. So it's actually a very valuable resource that you can use to kickstart your research. I'm going to put it in here. So don't worry if it's a bit overly dramatic. Like at the start, I have really dramatic photos and like I'm doing short sentences and stuff. And if I'm using like metaphors or similes or rhetorical devices or weird literary thing, like if I don't sound like I'm speaking normally, that's just because it's for the Lambda public speaking. Bear that in mind. You have to like put in certain literary rhetorical devices just to tick the boxes or whatever. Like I wouldn't actually speak like this in a presentation. I'm just like doing pauses for dramatic effects and stuff just to get higher marks. So don't worry about that. Just worry about the actual content, because this content is going to be really useful when it comes to your research. And basically just watch this 5-minute presentation and basically it's going to do 90% of the job for you, and you're going to know more than most people. So here you go. Here's the presentation. So the future of aviation. Do airplanes still have a place in a post-carbon world? We're in a time when images like these are all over the news. Wildfires, flooding, Arctic melting, and currently governments around the world are scrambling to stop the cause of this, climate change. And one of the largest contributors to rising CO2 levels is aviation. According to IATA, aviation already accounts for around 2% of the world's carbon emissions, and this is only set to increase. By 2037, passenger numbers will have doubled to 8.2 billion, more than the population of the planet. So in the world's endeavour to reduce carbon emissions, prevent fatal climate change, and progress forward sustainably, will our aeroplanes become a thing of the past? The answer is no. While sure our current dirty kerosene-fueled planes will have to be phased out, new technology is being created to allow planes to continue to fly us to holiday destinations around the world, but in a more eco-friendly manner. Since the early 2010s, engineers have been working to produce sustainable aviation fuels that is made from recycled waste and therefore much cleaner for the environment. In 2018, Virgin Atlantic was the first airline to fly a commercial flight with sustainable aviation fuels. Using sustainable aviation fuel is certainly not perfect. It reduces carbon emissions but does not completely eliminate them. But it's a first step, a short-term solution. It doesn't require any technology change, as the fuel works in the normal systems of a plane in the same way that kerosene does. Therefore, while completely new technologies are being developed, sustainable aviation fuels can be a stepping stone. In the long term, the technologies that will allow the aviation industry to be carbon neutral by 2050 will be hydrogen and electric. This is the Hyundai iX35 FCEV, the first commercial hydrogen car. But this was only made in 2013, so if a 5-seater, 4.4 metre long hydrogen car has only recently been made in the last decade, surely it will be a very, very long time before a 200-passenger, multi-ton aeroplane can be built. This does seem a big step, but it is actually closer than you think. In September 2020, Airbus announced its plans for 3 hydrogen-fueled zero-emission planes, the Zero E family, which are scheduled for launch by 2035. And now every day their engineers become more confident in the technology. Just last month in November, Airbus's Blue Condor became the first Airbus flight to use hydrogen as the sole fuel. So it seems hydrogen power may create a new generation of carbon-neutral aircraft that will help aviation meet its target of carbon neutral by 2050. Hydrogen is not the only way to do this. Electric aircraft are also being developed. In November 2021, Rolls-Royce's Spirit of Innovation plane became the fastest all-electric aircraft in the world, reaching 387.4 miles an hour. And many other companies are also investing their resources in electric development, for example, Vertical Aerospace and Airbus once again. Although these electric aircraft are likely to be limited in their size and range. Ultimately, necessity is the mother of invention. And in the light of the devastating effects of climate change, the whole aviation industry will have to rapidly evolve. New green technologies are being invented as we speak, so I can assure you, aviation still has a bright place in our future in the hands of hydrogen and electric power. So now that you've watched that presentation, hopefully that gives you sort of a head start on the research. I've done a lot of it for you there, that summarises a lot of it. And actually just knowing the things from those presentations probably gets you 90% of the way there. You're probably better than 90% of people in terms of research just by listening to that 5-minute presentation. Because to be honest, in the aerospace industry, all most people bring to the table is I like planes or something like that. Whereas if you can say, well, here's the thing, I'm going to test if you're listening now, so I want you to pause the video, right? And I want you to either think about it in your head or write down on a piece of paper or write down on the notes on your phone, all right? These 3 questions. So what are the trends of the industry? What are the goals of the industry? And what are the innovations of the industry? Okay, just to check you were listening, this is a good step to like consolidate your knowledge, active recall, all that. So pause the video, write that down right now. Okay, and let me go through the answers. So just saw in that presentation that the trends are that where are the industry headed? The industry is headed towards hydrogen and electric power in the future. That's where it's headed. Now in terms of goals, why is it headed here? It's headed here because of the sustainability goals. So the industry wants to be net zero by 2050, and of course Airbus have their goal of getting their hydrogen planes out by 2037. So that's the goal, sustainability and getting net zero by 2050. And then finally, what are the recent innovations? So you could give a few examples. So one would be the Rolls-Royce Spirit of Innovation. With this, basically innovations are how is it headed there. So it's going to get to sustainability through these innovations, which is an all-electric plane by Rolls-Royce Spirit of Innovation, the fastest ever in 2021. You can say the Blue Condor airplane that was fully hydrogen, first one Airbus doing that. And also you could give an example of in 2018 Virgin Atlantic using sustainable aviation fuels. Those are some innovations. So hopefully that's what you wrote down, because then it means you were listening, and hopefully that's helped you remember it for when you're going to need it in future. So now, as I say, that's 90% of the research, and you could probably do with doing a tiny bit more. Okay, so I've done most of it for you, don't worry about it. There's just the last 10% you could probably do, and let me help you on how you do this. So first of all, company websites. 3 websites I want to point you towards: the Airbus website, the Boeing website, and the Rolls-Royce website. These are very good websites. They have lots of articles on sustainability, lots of articles on the different aircraft they make, different news going on. So go on these, look at their press releases, look at their news, look at the pages, look at the articles, and you can find out that last 10%, just a bit more information to really help you with this research. And for example, you can read about the different sectors. So within aerospace, there's different sectors. There's commercial, there's military, etc. And you can learn about all those. So that's the final 10%, is looking through websites. And let me actually give you an even better tip than websites. This is even better. This is mailing lists. Okay, so I completely forgot about mailing lists until genuinely 3 days ago. Airbus sent me an email from their mailing list. I didn't even know I was still on the mailing list. But when I was interested in aerospace, I had signed up to the Airbus mailing list, because basically it gives you, every month it's going to send you an email of basically a bunch of articles you can read, and this is going to basically save so much time. This final 10% of research, which one are you going to be more motivated to do? Think about this. Dedicate like an hour to go and randomly spend some time on websites and hope you find some good articles that give you some good research, or every month, like on time, a handmade, like curated list of the best articles of that month gets put straight into your inbox. That's going to save you so much time, because just once a month you have to spend 10 minutes reading those articles, and then it's going to increase your research like that. So definitely actionable step right now would be to go over to things like the Airbus website, sign up to the mailing list. as I say, the email I got 3 days ago, that's how I found out about the Blue Condor flight, which I updated, by the way. For that presentation I gave you, I updated it with that Blue Condor stuff. And also you get emails about things like events. So I remember about a year ago or so, there was an Airbus event that they sent me from a mailing list. And so if I wanted to, I could have done that. So just to summarize this bit on research, hopefully that presentation has helped you and given you 90% of your research. And then the last 10% you can get through websites, or an even higher leverage tactic is to use mailing lists, okay? And then hopefully, now that you've done that research, you're going to know the 3 things you need that constitute good research. So that is trends, goals, and innovations. Step 1B, implementing the research. Okay, so it's all well and good that you've done the research, but how does the recruiter know that? How does the company know that? You have to communicate that to them. And there's basically 3 ways you can communicate it to them, which I'm going to go through, and it's each 3 stages of the application process. So number 1 is the online application. So the best part to put your research in is in your cover letter. So I've said this before, you can check out my cover letter video if you want. There's the research paragraph on cover letters, and this is where you can put a really good research in. So let me give you an example that you could use. I know that Airbus, so this is if you're applying to Airbus, you could say something along the lines of, I know that Airbus recently launched the Blue Condor flight, which was the first hydrogen flight powered by Airbus. I align with your goal of being net zero by 2050, as I think protecting the environment is a very important thing. I would like to work for a company that is constantly innovating with new technologies such as hydrogen power, and also would like to work for an employer which is responsible and accountable for its impact on the planet and its people. Straight away, that's a really good research paragraph you can use in your cover letter, so you can use that as an example if you want. And then also another thing to do is in the application questions section, because there might be an application question where it's like, why do you want this job, or what interests you about the industry? You can there just sneak in things like, I'm interested in the industry because I care about sustainability, or I'm interested in new innovations like hydrogen and electric. So that's the first way, you can get it in your online application. The second way is the virtual interview, and again they could ask you a question where it's like, why do you want this role? And that's something that I think is important. When they say why do you want the role, easy place, just insert some research. So say you want the role because you're interested in aerospace or something, and then say something like, I know that your company's interest in sustainability and is working on a hydrogen family of aircraft, and that's something that interests me as well because I care about sustainability and I want to do that in my career. And then straight away you've managed to just get in a bit of research. So when you can just insert stuff like that, it's just giving you bonus points. So in your virtual interview, if there's a question like, why do you want the role, straight away insert that. And now the third one's the assessment center. With the interview, it's the exact same as the virtual interview, just insert it into like, why do you want an apprenticeship? Then in terms of the presentation, you can include things in the presentation. So if the presentation was about, tell us about the future of the industry, then you can obviously that's really easy. You can just include your research there. Even if it was like, give us a technical presentation, you start talking about something, you can just somewhere insert a slide about sustainability and say, I know that your company is recently innovating on hydrogen to become net zero. You can just insert things there. And then finally there's the group exercise, and this is probably the most underrated way of getting in research. Because all you need to do is, I'll give you an example. When I was applying for one of my companies and I had an assessment center, one of the group exercises was we had to plan a marathon we had to plan a charity event, and we chose to host a marathon. And I just randomly put in as a line, right? I just said, I think we should make sure that sustainability is important because this company cares about sustainability. So let's do things like recyclable bottles and biodegradable whatever, right? Just saying that line instantly would have got me 3 marks more in that group exercise, and I did get the job from that one. Just because saying lines like that, like linked to the company, just give you more marks. That's the thing with group exercise. There's like a list of lines you can just list off, and it's gonna just instantly just give you marks just from listing them off. Like on New Year's Day, I'm going to release the full assessment center guide, and I'll go into this in more detail about the group exercise. But genuinely, you can just list off like phrases, and one of those phrases is, I know the company cares about sustainability, so let's do this. So in your group exercise, even if it's not relevant, you can embed it in a way that's clever, it's subtle, and it gets you more marks. So if you are doing a group exercise where you have to organise an event, you can just put in a line that says, I know that Airbus cares about sustainability and wants to be net zero by 2050, so let's do sustainability in this. So that's a good way of implementing that research in the group exercise and showing that you've done it. So there's the 3 ways you can implement your research into your application, and it's going to make you a more appealing candidate because you've actually put the effort in to do research and you're more knowledgeable about the company and the industry. So there's the 3 ways to implement it. Step 2A, transportation MOOC. So here's the thing about the aviation aerospace industry, you don't really get taught anything at school about it, like anything, like maybe in geography you did a small case study on something to do with it and you got a few statistics, but realistically at school you don't really get taught anything to do with aerospace or aviation. So this is where you need to do a MOOC, a massive open online course, to basically get that gap of knowledge that you have because you've learned nothing at school. And this is where I want to recommend one for everyone watching this video to do right now, and that is Transport Systems, Global Issues and Future Innovations by the University of Leeds. And let me just explain why this is a good MOOC. And let me actually get out the notes I've done on it. So here's the exercise book that I've done my notes in. This is actually something I definitely recommend when you're doing a MOOC. Write all your notes in an exercise book, because first of all you're just going to forget it all, so when you come to like need this information you'll have forgotten it all, you'll have lost access to the course, etc., and it's not going to really help you. So definitely write it down in the book. And the second thing is, I think this also gets you in the mood for an interview. So if you watch my video on, what did I call it, a lesson in interviews, rituals and flow state, I basically said the best way of getting into flow state and performing well in an interview is through having a ritual that you do the same time every single time you start an interview. And part of my ritual actually was reading all my notes on the MOOC. And that basically just got me into the mindset. It basically got me more knowledgeable about the topic. So if I read about this transportation MOOC, the transport systems MOOC, it means I know about transport. It's all in my mind. I'm thinking about everything. And also it just gets me into flow state, and it's a good ritual. So that's just a side note for you. But let me just have a look at some of my notes from this and just explain why this is actually useful in a MOOC. Because there's actually, I could boil it down to 3 things that you can get from a MOOC, and a lot of people only think it's 1. So the most important thing first is knowledge. You're going to get knowledge from a MOOC. So just to start off, this MOOC, I'll just start off with the most important bit. This MOOC has a section on aerospace, and in particular it's called Making Aviation Sustainable. And let me just read a few of my notes from here. So step 1, invest in new technology. So you could have new fuel efficient engines. The average British Airways flight is 106.8 grams CO2 per passenger kilometre. Should be 83 by 2025. New winglet design and aerodynamics could approximately reduce 4.6% of the fuel burn per flight. Lightweight cabin materials are another way. Swiss International Airlines installed lightweight seats on the entire fleet and saved 2,800 tonnes of CO2 each year. So that's how, just from this MOOC, you're learning about different technologies that can help improve sustainability. And some of those statistics you can use if you want. Just clip them from this video, write them down. So that's just the aviation module, but actually the whole course is valuable. So it talks about transport, the challenges of transport, what transport needs to be. Like my first notes on here are transport needs to be safe, affordable, easy to access and sustainable. There's lots to do with things like highways, which is why, again, this is a course I recommend for civil engineering. And there's a lot of things about cars. So again, I would say it's good for people looking at automotive engineering, but I would definitely say for aerospace and aviation, it is a really good one to have. And there are these 3 things. So first of all, it gives you the knowledge of the transportation sector as a whole, the challenges of the transportation sector, and also that aviation module. So that's good knowledge, and that's where a lot of people think that that's where a MOOC ends. You just get some knowledge, but there's actually 2 more things. You get skills and you get behaviours. I'm using the apprenticeship framework here, but you get skills and behaviours from MOOCs as well. So the skills you're going to get from this MOOC. So in this MOOC, you have to do a written report on I think it was a design for a new city centre or something. So that's straight away going to give you transferable skills in written communication. You're going to have to manage your time. It's only 8 hours. Again, it's not a big commitment. But it's 8 hours. You're going to have to manage your time with other things. That's a time management skill. And also it's just a willingness to learn and an open and growth mindset. And then here's the third one, which barely anyone would think about, is it gives you good behaviours you can mention. So as I say, the first thing that I've written down for this course, transport needs to be safe, affordable, easy to access and sustainable. So this gives you the behaviours or the sort of values of safety, sustainability, affordability, and those are really useful values to have, characteristics to have, because as we saw in the research section, the industry really cares about sustainability. So if you can say, I did this course and I learned about the values of sustainability and safety and accessibility, then that's going to be really useful. Okay, so I definitely recommend stop the video, actionable step right now. I want you to click on this. It's going to be first link in the description. Okay, you're going to go onto this, you're going to create a Future Learn account or whatever, or sign in if you've already got one, and click enroll today. Okay, no coping right now. One actionable step, go on it right now and click it. It's only 8 hours. I just want you to click enroll. You can worry about when you're going to do it later. All I want you to do right now is pause the video and click enroll. Step 2B. Implementing the transportation MOOC. Now that we've done that transportation MOOC, again, we need to know how to show it off, because it's the same as research. You can do your research, but if the recruiter doesn't know, what was the point of doing the research? So how do you implement this transportation MOOC? And this is actually quite simple. You just put it in your CV. You say, completed the 8-hour MOOC, blah, 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 by the University of Leeds. And then you just go through the knowledge, skills and behaviours. And again, a lot of people just say knowledge. So they'll do this MOOC and they say, I learned about the transportation sector as a whole, the challenges it faces, and I learned about the specific technological changes that could be used to make aviation more sustainable, right? And they stop it at that. But you're actually missing off skills and behaviours. So say you completed the MOOC, then do a description of what you learned, that's the knowledge section. And then the next thing you can put in is skills. So you could say something like, I had to develop my written communication skills through a report I had to write on a new design for a city centre. I also had to develop my time management skills to balance doing this course with my schoolwork and extracurricular activities. So that's a good way you can put in. And then final sentence of this bit of the CV could be something about behaviours. So I learned about the importance of safety and sustainability, and I now know that sustainability is a really important mission that I believe needs to be accomplished or whatever. So there you go, that's how you can basically get a step above everyone else, because everyone else is just going to talk about the knowledge in their CV. If you can talk about the skills and behaviours it gives you to, even better. Step 3A, engineering MOOC. Now this is specifically for engineers, so if you're doing aerospace engineering or electrical engineering, mechanical engineering at an aerospace company, then this is definitely one for you. So if you're doing something else, don't worry about it, you can skip this step and just go and watch the section at the end of this video. But this one's specifically for engineers, and this MOOC could genuinely change your life. If you do this MOOC, I think it's 99% chance that you get the job. As long as you don't completely mess up the other things, there's a 99% chance that you're going to get this job, because this MOOC is crazy. So it's Introduction to Aeronautical Engineering by TU Delft, which is a university in the Netherlands, and it's a 7-week MOOC, 10 to 12 hours per week. So it's a big time commitment, okay? And I'm just going to put a few screenshots on screen now of the sort of thing you're going to be learning, and you can see that it is extremely technical. So that's the thing about this one. It is very mathematical, lots of new concepts. It's going to be beyond A-level. So when I did this, I hadn't even done A-level, I was doing GCSE. So I learned things about logarithms and integration a couple of years early. And to be honest, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. It shows to the employer when you put it in your CV that you're expanding your knowledge beyond the curriculum. You're really challenging yourself, because this is high-level stuff. It is beyond A-level maths and will require a lot of effort, thinking and that sort of thing. And time commitment, as I say. But as you can see from the screenshots, just knowing some of these things is going to make you better than every single person in the application, because again, as I said before in the video, most people applying to an aerospace company, all they can bring to the table in terms of motivation is, I like planes, right? You can bring to the table, I've done a 7-week MOOC, which was 12 hours per week of study, where I learned about the technical details of lift. I learned about how to calculate the pressure at any given altitude in the atmosphere. I learned how wings generate lift. I learned the different shapes of airfoils and how that affects things. I learned about the different types of propulsion, including jet engine and propeller. I learned about how to calculate the most optimal descending rate and the flight envelope. you're going to be saying words like flight envelope that normal people don't even understand, right? So this MOOC is genuinely game changing, and I would definitely recommend, again, actionable step, go on edX, make an account, click enroll right now. I don't care if you don't think you have the time or whatever. Actionable step is to click enroll. I'm not asking you to do it, I just want you to get the ball rolling and click enroll, because you'll be like, oh no, I'll do it in a month, I'll do it in a week, I'll do it in a couple of days, and then that goes on and on and on. Just do it right now, click enroll. It doesn't matter when you do it, okay? You can think about that later, leave that to later, okay? Act now, think later, all right? So click enroll. It's going to be second link in the description this time. Click on that and just enroll today. Step 3B, implementing the engineering MOOC. You're getting the theme now. Step B is about implementing, because it's all well and good to do step A and get these skills or whatever, but if you don't implement them, then the recruiter's not going to know about it, and what's the point? And it's basically a section on your CV, and you need to make sure you word it correctly. So completed a MOOC on Introduction to Aeronautical Engineering, and this is where I add in, you definitely need to add in a section which says, which was 7 weeks of 12 hours per week of study. Because if you don't say that, they might think, oh, it's just a 2-hour course, whatever. That shows to them that is a massive time commitment. 7 times 12 off the top of my head is 84. 84 hours is ridiculous. So you put that in and they really see how committed you are. They will look at that, and you go from here to here straight away, and that's the baseline. So you literally go up 400% just because of that. Put in the name TU Delft because it's a big name in the aerospace industry. And then once again, knowledge, skills and behaviors. So say, in terms of knowledge, I learned about the different forces on an aircraft, how to calculate them. I learned about airfoils and how the shape can affect it. I learned about the flight envelope, do all that. And then here's where, again, put skills in. So I developed my mathematical ability by learning concepts that were beyond the A-levels spectrum. I had to really develop my time management to fit in this 12 hours per week alongside all my current schoolwork and extracurricular activities. And I really had to develop an open mindset to be able to take on these high-level concepts. And then in terms of behaviors, there's not really many behaviors. Like with the last one, it had the thing about sustainability and safety. Because this is purely technical, there's not many behaviors, but you can really get those knowledge and skills in. I dedicate a decent paragraph to that, longer than usual, because there's so much in this. So that is how you can implement this MOOC. Now there you go, that is the strategy for getting a degree apprenticeship at an aerospace company. This exact strategy worked for me, and I didn't even know the apprenticeship I was applying to, right? So that proves if you know the apprenticeship you're applying to, most likely you do. If you want to do project management, you know what a project manager is. If you want to be an HR or whatever, you know what HR is. If you want to be an electrical engineer, you probably do know, unlike me. But if it worked for me without knowing, then it's going to work for you. So I want you to basically implement all of those steps, do that final 10% of research. I hope that presentation helped. Have a look at those MOOCs, go through doing those MOOCs, and that's really going to help you with getting that aerospace apprenticeship. So I hope this full guide has helped. Put a lot of time into this, so I hope it gives you value. If it has given you value, then leave a like on this video. I'd really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks very much.